Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Rader. This is a lesson for AP World History, and in this lesson, we're going to be looking at decolonization in Algeria. So, if we look at the document in front of us, what we're going to be examining today is continuity and change over time. And we want to look at the Algerian struggle in terms of human agency and in terms of structural factors that allowed them to gain their independence. So we're going to start by doing a self-to-text or a text-to-world connection. And the quote reads as follows: "You are making monsters out of us. Your humanism wants us to be universal, and your racist practices are differentiating us." Jean-Paul Sartre, 1965. So just a couple of recap questions. Who's speaking in the document? Who is the you? Who is the us? What point is the quote trying to make? And how might you see yourself or other Americans in this quote or the idea that it's trying to convey, whether we're looking at the past in the 1950s and 1960s or today in 2020? So we're going to be looking at the circumstances that prompted the independence movement in Algeria from 1954 to 1962 when they gained their independence and joined the non-alignment movement. And we're going to analyze the extent to which structural factors and agency had on this movement. So, what I included next was a very famous movie. It's called The Battle of Algiers. I included the hyperlink to the entire movie as it is available on YouTube, and I included the link to the movie trailer. I'm going to ask that at a minimum you watch the movie trailer. It's 2 minutes. If you have extra time today and you'd like to watch the entire movie, it is really, really good. So if you do have extra time, it is something to check out. And what I want you to kind of consider with the videos, what did you realize about the movement? And what do you wonder about this movement from the video? So this lesson is broken into two activities. The first one is looking at Slimane Azem's poem, Locusts Leave My Country. And what I'm going to ask you to do is read the primary source, consider its overall message, take note of specific words and phrases that convey that message, and then answer the guiding question by inserting a comment directly into the document. For the second activity, you're going to be looking at a source by Frantz Fanon. And again, make sure you read the context for who this person is so that you better understand the bias and the sourcing of this particular document. And again, it is very useful. I'm going to continue to help you all practice the document sourcing skills, whether we're looking at historical context, the intended audience of the document, the purpose of the document, the point of view of the document, and any outside information that we can bring to these documents. And what I want you to consider is his message about decolonization and the use of violence convincing? So you're going to record examples given by the writer to support his point of view about decolonization and violence, and then answer the guiding questions using evidence from the text. So in terms of the documents themselves, this speaks to decolonization and violence. This is the secondary source. And in terms of just understanding for the decolonization movement in general in the 20th century, there's a very useful T-chart that is put together here. This looks at structural factors, and this one looks at human agency. And it's really important to kind of think about what the components might be. So if we're looking at causation, which we will look at in a future lesson, we want to figure out why did these things happen? Well, there are going to be structural reasons. And likewise, there are going to be factors related to human agency. So it's important for us to keep that in mind when we look at the various decolonization movements of the 20th century. And even when we look at any kind of major social movement or social protest, whether past or present, they do involve usually structural factors and human agency-based factors. The PowerPoint for this lesson recaps essentially what you saw in the documents. This is the trailer for the Battle of Algiers. This is the directions for the first activity. The second activity, this is a really interesting campaign poster that was released during the independence movement in Algeria. Again, once they become an independent nation, they will join the non-aligned movement. And just keep in mind when we look at the overall history of decolonization in Africa, it's a really wide span in terms of when countries fully really gain their own nominal independence. And then there are also questions that remain. For example, if the countries are still economically dependent on the West, or on the East, if we look at infrastructure and investment projects, particularly East Africa and the People's Republic of China today since 2010, and really since the implementation of the PRC's Belt and Road Initiative as part of their new Silk Road to going to 2025. These are questions to consider when we look at the long-term consequences of the decolonization movement in Africa. All right, so that will bring today's lesson to an end. I hope you all have a nice day, and we'll check back soon.